Thanks everyone for joining us on time. We really appreciate that. We will, of course, wait for the next 30 to 60 seconds for everyone else to join before we start this week's edition of Beyond My MBA. And today there's a very interesting story that we are having in the form of Amar Pratap Singh, who's been a previous alum at SOIL. So we have Amar Pratap Singh Bhullar after a great period of time when he finally relented, and we are having his story being covered. He's a veteran when we are looking at the human resource space. He's been the assistant vice president, human capital management at Yes Bank, where he worked close to about 2 years, 3 years rather. He's also been an HR BP in multiple companies and brands like Mahindra. Mahindra Group was one of his longest stint, and he somewhere started his career as a learning facilitator. So that L&D part, the human resources part, has been always very critical in Amar's profile, where he was the learning facilitator HR. There, of course, again, he had a stint of close to about 3 years. He's hailing from Shimla. He went to Bishop's Cotton School and, of course, has been a SOIL alumnus. We're really looking forward to understanding what has Amar been up to after his entire MBA stint. So like we said, Amar was even asking, can you tell us what is going to be unfolding in this discussion? Amar, as we had said that time also, you were the protagonist. We'd want you to drive the entire conversation. We'd let you spearhead this entire conversation, and we'd like to know more about you. So, of course, we know your professional life journey, especially from your your so-called marquee LinkedIn profile as well. But would like to know more about you yourself, and also currently he holds it very low key. He's currently a human resource specialist at one of your MBBs, that's McKinsey. He's working for McKinsey as well, but still a very humble, nuanced HR professional in front of us who'll be sharing his entire journey. So over to you. I'll let you spearhead the entire conversation now.
Thanks, Neeja. I hope I'm audible. And so actually, I actually kept about 4 minutes to cover that aspect, but I didn't know that was being covered. So thank you so much. Means a lot. And thank you for joining. Good evening, everyone. I hope your classes are done. And so basically, I'm going to do a little context setting out here. If you have any questions during whatever I'm talking about, just feel free to put it on to the chat or raise your hand. Anything is fine, because I want to have it kind of a two-way communication, not something that I will want to talk about everything and then we will leave X number of time for Q&A. This should be a two-way communication. Just feel free to ask anything and I'll be happy to answer that. So life beyond MBA. So basically, after SOIL, I had joined M&M, Mahindra and Mahindra Limited at the corporate center, at the group office at Bombay. And let me tell you, the first couple of months, it was putting theory into practical. And to be very honest, it was the most anxious time for myself, and as well as the most difficult time, because I had learned X, Y number of things to do in a very particular, in a very bookish kind of an approach. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I never realized that the expectation of, especially the business that you're working, especially because I'm in HR, and the business that you're working, their expectation is very, very different. So it was a very 360-degree change for myself. And there were good times, there were bad times, but I really had to, the word that people keep on saying, stakeholder management. I learned stakeholder management in Mahindra Group. And so first of all, I would, I entered and one was the theory and the practical difference, but the second difference was also from the comparisons. I realize that people will make a comparison between which college you're coming in from. And in 2014, when I joined, there were a lot of IMs and ITs, and a lot of people who had joined, extremely talented people. So I had to really befriend them, also learn from them, but I had also wanted to prove a point. And that became a very big challenge for myself. And I started off with stakeholder management, understanding what the requirement was. And this aspect was in the leadership and development, or in other words, learning and development for Mahindra Group. And Mahindra Group was that time establishing their first corporate university. So it was, like I said, it was tough, but I went by it, and I had to, unlearn and then learn back. So there were projects that I had to do which were related to learning for the board. So they had a board, and we wanted to set up a kind of a module for them. So I had to go back to my studies. I had to open up all my books from soil or from my graduation, and also do a little R&D from the internet to understand a lot of things which were taught to me. But also during that time, I thought, when will you use that? So that was the time. So a lot of key projects happened in M&M. M&M was also the time that, I realized that I wanted to be a generalist, not a specialist. And that was my personal decision. So 3 years into M&M and doing leadership and development across auto and farm sector, Mahindra Holidays, and so on and so forth, I decided that once I got to understand the business, I wanted to go into the generalist part, which was HRBP role. And it took a while. It was not that I'll just say it and then it happens. It took a while, and I went to an HRBP role, and which was in their aftermarket segment, which was Mahindra First Choice Wheels, which is into used car segment. And out there, again, it was going from a very corporate culture of Mahindra into a business part, which was driven, A to Z things were driven by business. That is where I understood how HR, or how as an individual you make a contribution, because in corporate office you are only following rules and regulations that are passed from the leadership, and it's cascaded down to the last man or to the last woman in the firm. But there I realized that you really had to work directly with your business managers, respective whichever dealer management services, and you had to start from scratch. So I really started from recruitment, and that was the key point, because I understood that recruitment is not, it's kind of a bread and butter, because if you start to do recruitment at an early stage in the human resource domain, then you start to understand what kind of people you want to come to your company. And while you are hiring them, or while some people do get rejected as well, then you start to realize also the aspect of what kind of people are wanted and what kind of people are not wanted, what and how every, it's just not a year that in the financial year the key or the aspirations will change for the business, but every month the requirement changes. And I'm not even exaggerating, there were times that we were hiring for dealer management, and it used to change the competency used to change every week, and we had to hire about 20-30 odd people. So I had a team that time, and we were really on our toes. So this was my experience with Mahindra. And then I got an opportunity to work with YBL, which is Yes Bank Limited, and I moved back from Bombay to Gurgaon, NCR. There, another kind of a I won't say it was kind of a realization in my life that human resources in not just it differs from industry to industry, but while coming to a banking sector, it just completely changed. The requirement changed. The difficulty level raised. I had to understand business that was completely different from a manufacturing industry. I mean, like, I had to understand what is CA and SA, and people used to talk in acronyms, and I didn't understand. Basically, CA was current account and SA was savings account. Then, when I entered YBL, the expectation of the role of an HRBP, which in the banking sector, it's called an HCM RM. It's called a relationship manager. They don't call it HRBP anymore. And their expectation is you log in at 9:30 and you're doing your 8 hours or 9 hours of shift, but your expectation is not just work. You come to your desk and you open up your laptop. That's not your work. You need to be on the field. As an HR, you're not supposed to sit behind your laptop or your desk and then pass on or solve queries on the mail. You had to really go on the field, and by field I mean going to each branch, understanding what the problem was. The problems could be numerous things. I mean, I can't detail out the issues, but there were things that I really, I used to read articles about it, and I was into those situations. And then while solving it, I realized, coming from a manufacturing industry, it was you had to really kind of learn on the job. And while learning on the job, it was not just making decisions like I'll come back to you. That was not it. You can't say I'll come back to you. Not not in reality. There you had to solve the problems right there and then. And that was the most difficult part, but that's where I learned. People would come up to you late at night also. I mean, yeah, some of the bankers got off at a particular a time, and they had more space to get their queries resolved after working hours, and you had to be available for them. There were difficult times also in terms of transitions, because in a banking industry it's very dynamic. In 1 month you're hiring X number of people for a current account, and then suddenly you have to hire for credit card people, and then you have to understand their job description. So it was not just going 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 doing a job and understanding, okay, this is the XJD, this is the number of people I want to hire, and then that's it. No, your KRAs would be dependent on what the expectation of the business is. I know it sounds a little if I was on the other side, it would sound, that's not it. There is a process. There is that it's streamlined. No, that's not it. For me, that's not it. It has to be ambiguous. It has to be every day has to be different, and that's when you start learning, and that is what YBL taught me. After YBL, I decided so during the COVID time, and YBL was going through some aspect, which I'm pretty much sure you would have read about it in 2019, 20, and 21. And I decided to do some learning for myself. I wanted to do some courses with IIM Lucknow, with Nasim Munji. That's for me. That was my personal choice. And I also wanted to work. And it was, I would say now in 2023, I would say it was a good decision for myself because during COVID time, everything became work from home. So I had a lot of time to study and to learn more. So I picked up a lot of courses, which were in long term, like more than six months and a couple of years also. And when I decided to move out of YBL, I wanted to complete my education, and I was doing 2 courses at that time. And that is the time. So I'm going to stop here because I have one question. Saurabh. Yes, Saurabh. Saurabh, you can speak. I mean, if that is allowed, or you can type in your question. Anything, whatever is convenient. And secondly, another rule. Please don't call me sir. My name is Amar, and I really like that name. Okay, so Saurabh, you can. Okay, so I've got questions on a different chat. Okay. Rahul, I'll wait for your question to come in. Saurabh, I'll get back to you on that. I'm going to park that question, and Rahul, I'll wait for you. So, anyways, the next aspect of my life was on the part of doing the education and then moving on. So I had decided to take I didn't know which company it was, and I gave the interview to a consultant uh, first, and basically I got selected, and then I did at least about 7 to 8 rounds of interview, and I got selected with McKinsey. Now McKinsey, completely again in the manufacturing industry, going to a banking industry, and then going completely opposite. So both Indian companies, and then going back to a, not going back, so changing my role into a totally consultant oriented firm and an MNC, which was McKinsey. And McKinsey was, again, I'm sorry, I'm using that word, the change of attitude and the 360-degree change, but McKinsey was totally different. Again, I had to forget everything I learned from Mahindra. I had to forget everything I learned from a banking sector, because in McKinsey, the stakeholders were different, the expectation was different, the working culture was different, and I had to be flexible. I realized that I really had to change my approach, not just the way I worked, but also in terms of how I wrote my emails, in terms of how I got work done. So McKinsey was like that. Now I'm going to take this question. So, okay. 6 months of experience in automobile industry, the maintenance department. Okay. So
Also,
I have
yeah,
sorry.
also the back end, we did get a couple of questions when we rolled out. We'd informed our audiences that you'll be coming, and there was
Yeah.
one interesting question which is also tied back to what you were saying. So you vividly mentioned that you were not aware about your car or your the savings account, the current account, those technicalities, and minutely you learned all of that, and then you upskilled yourself. So there's a question being, because you have been in the human resources spaces for almost close to a decade or more than that. So people are asking, what do you think are the skills for the future? Because you've been with Mahindra, you've been with McKinsey right now. So I'm sure you're having a lot of exposure of corporates. So what are the skills that candidates, aspirants need to bring on the table? You've also had generalist experience, like you said, as an HRBP. So I'm sure you were interacting, and while you were interacting with all of them, you knew that, okay, this is not what an ideal candidate should be, or this is what an ideal candidate should definitely be. So just a little digging about, if people want to upskill themselves, if people want to understand what the skills that will be relevant in future from the HR's perspective, if you could throw some light on that as well.
Okay. So as now, let me just ask you a question, Neerja, since you had raised this question, and since I want to also answer specifically on that part. When you talk about skills, are you talking about skills as an HR professional, or are you talking about skills as a candidate who's coming in for an interview for a business role?
Okay, I'm really glad that you're trying to minutely dissect. So I think it'll be great if you can help us both the ways for brands that you've been associated, if somebody is aspiring to work for those brands, because a lot of people have this aspiration for working for brands like Mahindra or McKinsey and Company, or McKinsey, the MCKC Center, the
Yeah.
knowledge center that we're having. So a lot of people harbor this dream. So considering you are in, of course, we'll not like to dig in a little more on the projects that you're currently handling. But of course, if you could help us with what kind of skill sets are being looked at for normal candidature when they're applying to consulting firms or other corporate partners. And second part also, like, somebody wants to groom their career as an HR professional. What are the relevant skill sets that they need to get into on the platter? Because right now, when we are interacting with HR professionals, they're like that the job's changing, there are so many human resources management systems that are coming, like the Darwin Box, Keka, Hono.ai hires from Soil as well, or all these kind of firms. They're coming in and changing the entire ethos, and now HR is not becoming anymore just like the sort of making rangoli, but it's very, very strategic, because talent acquisition, HRBP, or learning and development portals in organizations have become so critical. So each and every aspect of HR is now getting completely developed overall. So just wanted to get both the perspectives. So what I need if I'm aspiring to work for brands like the ones that you're associated with. And the second point, if I want to groom and nourish my career as an HR professionals, what all skills can I get on the table?
Okay. Great. So, so when it comes to, so I'll talk about from my experience and what I've learned from my mentors and my seniors. When it comes to, you would say, competencies or skill sets in terms of candidates coming in with XYZ number of experience, or coming in from MBA school and coming into work, for irrespective of whichever organization. It doesn't matter if you're applying to India per se, even if it's an Indian company or an MNC, which covers the three aspects, YBL, Mahindra, or McKinsey. They will not look at kind of, yes, I mean, like, there is selection criteria that you have to come from this college or this kind of a percentile or CGPA, or after that is done, that is kind of a hygiene check. After that hygiene check is done, the kind of competencies or the kind of skill sets an interviewer or I will look at while hiring a person for my business will be in terms of flexibility, will be in terms of maturity, will be in terms of putting theory into practice and answering questions. So, for example, I can think of bell curve. Okay, now I ask anybody about bell curve, they'll explain me, 95, 5, and then whatever happens. How do you use it? If I come and tell you, I don't want a bell curve, what's the next approach? Tell me. On the spot answering. These are the things that are looked in a candidate, not something. So one is, making your CV so strong and then getting into that interview. That is hygiene. People put, for me, again, I'm saying from my experience, people put in a lot of effort to make their CV so strong and to showcase the accolades they have had. But during the interview, it is opposite. No. Once you get to the interview, you've done your hygiene. You have to put in, 40, 50, 60, 70%, whatever effort you're putting in to make your CV strong. to stand out. Yes, I'm not saying anything against that. But while in an interview, you have to first understand how do you talk to a business manager about business. So if let's suppose I'm hiring for a relationship manager for a account which is 1 crore and above in Yes Bank, I will not be looking at what you have done in your education. I'll be looking at the clients that you've handled. I'll be looking at whether you can talk to your clients, or how much business you're going to get. Not today, but tomorrow. How much you're going to. So I'm going to get futuristic. I'm not going to talk about what you have done, because you have done that great, and that's why you're sitting in front of me. If your CV was not selected, you wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be having my conversation with you. I wouldn't be spending my 15 or 20 minutes in an interview with you. I will not be sending you to my superior because you're sitting out here. That's why, because you've done good in your past and your current education experience, whatever, or whichever company you're coming in from. So flexibility, maturity, how do you put theory into practice will become a mantra. I used to hear this from when I was getting into interviews, and I used to say, how, that's not possible. How can I remember everything? No. The role that you're applying for, you need to understand what is happening today, what is going to happen tomorrow. Take a guess, do research, and then sit in the interview. If you're not ready for that, you will not get selected for the next one. And every interview I have given for Mahindra, for Yes Bank, for McKinsey was different. And I've only talked about, like, if it is a 1 hour discussion, I've only talked about 15 minutes what I've done. But the next 45 minutes was all about what I'm bringing to the table. So this is the first aspect for me. You can get into a lot of jargons and, high words, something like stakeholder management and etc. No. How you're flexible, how you're mature, how you're going to put theory into practice. 3 things for me. Nija, what was your second aspect?
Second aspect was, and absolutely right, you're right, till the time you're not knowing the nuances of your industry, or you're not able to have that vision and insight about what's going to be happening, then obviously it becomes a little difficult. So here you've of course given those generic features as somebody who wants to groom their career as an HR professional, which you have meticulously done over the past, be it your experience with your previous firms like Mahindra and Company, Mahindra and Group, to now your overall stint and journey with your most recent paymaster, that was McKinsey and Company. So what all skill sets can be required, especially if somebody is starting or just initiating their HR professional journey?
Okay, so the first aspect is what I've learned is, so there are 2 roles in HR, basically buckets, I would say, not roles. One is your specialist, one is your generalist. Generalist goes up to your X and Y, like CHROs, and even specialists can go. But if I would recommend and suggest as a friend, I would be saying that first understand business. And how do you understand business is becoming a generalist. Like I had mentioned, starting from your key aspects or the foundation of HR, recruitment, or, so what I'm saying is that first you need not to go into a very specialized role. Yes, people do get into that. I mean, I'm not saying that is wrong, that I became a specialist and I went to a generalist. Why I'm saying a generalist role? Because that's kind of an helicopter view of how the business or the firm is functioning, not just your vertical, but the entire functioning kind of working, and how it integrates, how it talks to each other. And then you see what you like, which aspect, which firm's business or a firm's vertical you like, and then you get into a specialist role. So that is one approach that I would recommend. Second, let's suppose you go into a very specialist role. So let's suppose you get into talent management, or you get into L&D, or R&R. Now, once you have got into there, then what you have to realize, it's just not do what the SLAs or the SOPs talk to you about. So X number of people will apply for an award, let's suppose R&R, and then Y is the budget. How do you allocate? You bring some new initiatives, and that is the Y budget being allocated in different initiatives of R&R. No, you have to realize, if you're giving this kind of initiative and you're talking about this initiative in this particular sphere, how do you cascade it to the last person? So if you're in a manufacturing industry and you're built an R&R initiative sitting at a corporate office, how do you expect a workman sitting at the at the station, at the last mechanical engineer sitting at the last function, how do you ensure that initiative of yours get cascaded down there? If it is not getting cascaded, you're doing short term. You're doing short term for a short period of growth, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. That will never sustain. So you need to sustain how much ever effort that you're putting in. Put in thinking, how do you cover the max number of people or max number of headcount, whichever company you're working at.
Absolutely right. So it shouldn't be that you're making those policies in silos without knowing whether or not they can be implemented properly. That's a very good advice. There's also this question that we got from people that a lot of times these days, like of course earlier, say 2 to 3 years ago, there was this entire approach that okay, you've done your bachelor's, you get a little bit of work experience, you understand the world, and then you do your MBA, and then that's mostly the last degree for most people, and then they'll bid studies due. But the high-paced changing world has demanded people to upskill themselves constantly, be it in the tech space or spaces which are going to be more relevant for their overall journey in their professional careers. So one question that was asked by many people is that what is your recommendation? Because you of course did the the PGPM program, for instance, here at Soil. That was also pretty radical. I'm curious to know that why you took up Soil in comparison to a conventional 2-year program. And now this question has become even more emphatic that, should we go for a traditional MBA? And this is especially in a context where a lot of people like, the current dean at IIM Ahmedabad is also saying that, the 2-year program will slowly have its own death altogether. It'll be buried, and the PGPMs or, the shorter courses or the so-called accelerated programs which are trying to impart management knowledge or knowledge about strategy, about basic core principles of management, they'll become more fashionable. So what is your take and perspective about the way we can be trained? And this is linked actually, again, like I'm quoting that example when you said the business jargon, the terminology, be it simple terminology like a current or a savings account, or be it the technical jargons that we're using, but being proficient with those jargons that will be used especially in the business world, particularly those related to revenue, profitability, the ones that will drive your businesses properly. So what is your take? Do you think that if any individual is currently deciding for higher education, what should they do?
Okay, so first of all, first aspect is that it should be very clear to each one of us is that whatever education that you are currently doing, please respect that, because it's not going to come back. So if you're wasting time there, don't think about higher education. Then you'll waste more time and age is not going to come back. So that is one. Second, if you're thinking about higher education, I agree. See, I have not read anything about the IIM Ahmedabad dean, whatever he has said. I respect where he's coming from, but what I have heard or I have learned from people who are senior to me is that yes, shorter courses. I'm not saying it's a 3, 6 months or a 1 year. I'm not putting any duration in that, but yes, shorter kind of executive courses. What Soil was at that point of time and that's why I had chosen, is helping companies to have resources, that is what we are, human resources for them, at a very short span of time. Well educated, well groomed, they are right at their alley in understanding kind of what is happening around the world. They've again I'm using the word again of the educated part, and then coming into the business and then running from the day one. That is a win-win situation for the business. That is how they are looking at it. How it is a win-win situation for you is, irrespective of the duration, whatever you are currently doing, all the students that are attending this and your batchmates, take each course or each subject in terms of not just going through it and scoring that highest marks, but understanding how it's going to help you in your career, not today, but tomorrow. How it is going to help you? Note it down, write it down, make a chart for yourself. I know sounds very boring, but it is what it is. Make a chart. XYZ things you love about this course, that subject, and then stick with it. Higher education will only help you what you really liked in your current education. If you're not finding any subject which you like, higher education goes for a toss. Then you're only doing it for accolades. And then I'm going back to my same statement, accolades will help you as an hygiene factor. It's not going to help you to get where you actually aspire to be. So whatever you're doing right now, make a point of noting down what subjects you really like, because higher education will help you. I'm not sure if I've answered, Nija.
200% you have. And the chart really reminded me of an activity that we would do at the vision board activity, or, just understanding, or the individual development plans that we make here at
Right.
Soil. It's
Yeah.
very much synced with those activities. So knowing yourself, rather today only I was speaking to a student and she's like, why am I internship? These are the things that I want to improve, and this is something that those courses will really help. So I think absolutely, it's made more sense, and I don't think you could have decluttered it any better, the entire argument. I think rather you should come and teach a few lessons here. Your students really love learning from you, the way that you're dissecting everything and making it more relevant for their overall experience. There was another question. Now, this is more related to you. And this was a question that was asked by one of our second year students here at Soil. This was given to us via email. And this question was about, during your professional journey, I'm sure there would have been like certain personal ups and lows. And sometimes, how would you, and especially today's day and age where people are questioning that generally is there a work-life balance, especially with this generation, which believes in multiple streams of revenue. So they are also having their side hustle. And I don't even understand that where would that work-life balance question come in their life, because, their main hustle gets completed and then it's time for their passion project, or their moonlighting, or their side hustle starts or kicks off. So I don't really know where their personal time goes in, or they've made their passion only their personal life. They're wedded to it. But coming on, this question was specifically for, how did you navigate those lows? What was your go-to strategy to make sure that, you were, and you seem to be very sorted, considering, you the way that you are presenting all those opinions. So how was what was your way of combating those personal lows, or did work give you that energy to move on to the next day? Or if at work you were facing some difficulties, how did you navigate that? So that was a question, and especially coming from our second years, because they are now going to go in another fortnight. They will be embracing and they'll be taking care of their jobs respectively. So they want to know and they want to get your advice on this.
Okay. If I look sorted, life has taught me how to become at least 20%. 80% is I'm still exploring. So that's not it. But let me come back to the question. There were a lot of lows, and I always remember one thing in my life, that success is just on the corner. And again, motivational, but sun lo. Uh, Success is just on the corner. So whenever I was low, or I thought that this is it, I mean, either I wanted to resign, or I wanted to shift quickly, or move on to new projects, or leave a particular set of role that I was doing, I always told myself, how far? What is the worst that is going to happen? So whatever worst was happening, what was the next level of worse? It created anxiety for myself. I did create anxiety for myself, but it was helping me. I'm not telling you that is what you should do, not at all. But I started to push myself, because I really thought that if I can't do that between the age of 26, 26 to 40, I would say, then what am I expecting? Am I expecting myself to stretch myself when I'm 50 plus? No, that's, I need to stretch myself, because one, I love what I'm doing. Love what I'm doing in terms of HR. So if I'm not willing to put more effort into it, then what is the point? I started questioning myself. Answers were there. Yes, uh, the best part was I had a group of people who were, I'm not saying just family. I had a group of people that I connected throughout my life, after soil and during soil as well. So I always, and they always lended their ear, and it really helped. I mean, it's very difficult to explain what happens to you when you are down and out, but you just need to talk it out. Don't keep it there. Move on. And if you're stuck, that is a worry. Don't get stuck. Again, Nirja. So this is a question which is you know it's personal to everyone. Everyone deals with their lows very differently. So explaining something, whatever I did, cannot connect with everybody. But always tell yourself what is the worst that is going to happen, and then move on.
Wow,
So
that's right. That everyone's way of coping is going to be very customized to their individual selves and what they bring on the table. That's true. Considering, I generally today didn't even come to know, because mostly these conversations are like 35 to 45 minutes, and I just looked at the time and I was like, oh God, it's almost culminating, because I think it was really nice listening to whatever you patiently were telling us. Considering we're coming a little close, to the end of it, I wanted to know your perspective, your overall understanding, and sharing biggest learnings of Amar Pratap totally in his career overall. So what were those? And we'd also know that we'd also want you to tell us that what would your advice be to these young Gen Z professionals who are definitely smarter than us, and because they are born with internet in their pockets. I'm assuming that you are of my generation. That is, maybe if you're also of their generation, then I don't know. Then I'm sorry for that. But assuming the kind of career trajectory that you have right now currently, so what advice would you like to give to them? Especially some of them are professionals, some of them are people who will be starting their career journey very, very soon. So just what advice would you like to give as we are almost wrapping up?
okay, okay. So the advice that I will give was part of the earlier question that you had asked me: work-life balance. Don't expect, don't always expect the firm, the company is going to provide you work-life balance. You need to have work-life. I play cricket. Okay, I have worked with Mahindra. I have worked with IPL. I'm working with McKinsey. It's been 8, 9, I don't know how many years. And before that, I was working with IBM. I ensured how work-life balance is going to define in my life. I am not going to expect what on how the company is going to give. I'm going to take out time, because work-life balance for me is kind of a stress buster. It's kind of a rehab. I need that in my life. Live example. I worked till about 6:45. I logged in. I am here with you. As soon as this session is over, I'm going to go and play cricket, and I have to reach the ground at about 9 o'clock. This is, and I'm making sacrifices. My family and everybody expects me to be also in some way, but I'm also making sacrifices. So you got to define how work-life balance, what work-life balance means to you, and how you're going to define it in your life. So don't expect always the company is going to give you. That is culture. So keep two different things separately. Second thing that I learned from my elders: 15 minutes in your daily routine, irrespective if it's a Saturday or a Sunday. 15 minutes, read about something that you like or love. Be that your subject, be that linked to your subject, anything. 15 minutes, read what is happening around you. Not what is happening to you, not what is happening, what you've gone through, not what you've gone through and now you have realized. No. Read what is happening around you. Talk to people, 15 minutes. Connect with people, 15 minutes. Read articles, 15 minutes. 15 minutes. This is what I've learned from my elders. And this is what I do every night before sleeping. And somehow or the other, whatever I've read, a couple of years back, it comes up during conversations. And it really helps me to connect with people who I don't know. These are the two things that I'll take.
That's nice. And we'd like to end and wrap it up with Kshitij's question. Kshitij is asking if you could help us understand what will be the future of HR. So what, in your opinion, especially in today's day and age where everybody's questioning the future of so many roles, recent studies are saying so many careers are going to be becoming very obsolete with the arrival of AI, particularly at ChatGPT, for instance, will make a lot of content curation roles and a lot of other data entry roles obsolete. So what do you think, in this mad race of innovation, what is the future of HR?
Okay. So Kshitij asked this question, right? Okay. So Kshitij, since this is a very informal discussion, so when I was in soil, I also read a lot about these articles. AI is going to come in, a lot of things are going to change, and it did happen slowly, but it did happen. But what I've realized is bringing in AI is the job of the human. Understanding and cascading the technology is the role of the human. Since I'm in HR, even if it is a chatbot that all my queries come in and then I have to overlook it, I am still overlooking it. Human and AI, or in terms, not even AI, machine learning or anything, any automation, human and automation will go hand in hand. You really don't have to worry about that. That's I'm not some guru or something, but that's what I think.
Absolutely. The people part, or their empathy quotient, or understanding the people, that's always going to be a human trait.
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't think any AI tool can actually, understand the pattern in which humans work, because they're so unpredictable as creatures. It was fantastic interacting with you. Thanks so much for sharing your journey overall. And like I said, I wish that, the duration was more, because we really loved intently listening, but we'll not come in the way of your cricket, your date with the cricket game altogether at 9 o'clock. So we'll not come in between. Thank you so much for, again, relenting and coming today and meeting us for Beyond My MBA series episode. Thank you so much. And thanks so much, all the participants. Thanks, Aishwarya, for putting this up together for us.
Okay, thanks. I got a comment there, but it's okay. It's okay.
Oh my God. No, no.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you for calling.
There are good ones also.
Yeah, no. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. But thank you, Nija. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking me to get into this. Thank you so much. And
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
cheers. Bye.
Bye.